It was calm, dark, late night of March when I was preparing for my board exams. As ours was a small house, I was studying in the kitchen. All of a sudden, I heard something. I tried to hear it carefully. Chum, chum, chum. It was the sound of anklets normally Indian women wear. I was not wearing it. I thought it's my illusion. So I ignored and tried to concentrate on my lesson. Again, after a few minutes, I heard it louder than before. Oh my God, is it a ghost? No, 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 no. How it could be? But again, chum 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 chum. Chum 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 chum. Chum 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 chum. The sound was getting closer and clearer. I got scared. I threw my books, ran from the kitchen, and jumped straight into my bed. I was trying to sleep, but I wasn't able to. It was deep dark in the room. I saw a green light approaching to me gradually from the living room. I was terrified. I turned my side. Now I was facing towards my gallery. This time, I saw a shadow of huge weird face moving up and down on gallery top. I was horrified. I wanted to scream, but my throat was choked. I was shaking my brother's shoulder to wake him up. And drum! I fell down from my bed. My mom was screaming at me, Abha, Abha, get up, get ready for the school. Oh my God. I woke up with a shock and smile. Shock because I came into real world all of a sudden. And smiled because what I saw was a nightmare. Hello, namaskar, adab, sasyakal, kasakay, kedokal, kem cho. Once again, I'm here, your loving host, Abha Jadhav, for your most loving talk show on YouTube, Spotlight with Abha, in collaboration with Radio Brain Rhyme. My dear friends, you must be thinking, how come Abha is telling a story in her talk show today? Well, I am infected by storytelling as I am going to interview one more international storyteller today. Friends, today we have an award-winning, cause-focused storyteller, speaker, facilitator, presentation skills trainer, and coach, Kristin Pedemonti from Washington, D.C. Welcome, Kristin, to Spotlight with Abha. How are you doing today,
Thank you so much,
Kristin?
Abha. It's a pleasure to be here. Very well today. Thank you for having me on your show. It's a pleasure to be with you and an honor.
Wow. Friends, I really feel thrilled to give a brief introduction of Kristin Pedemonti. Kristin is a conduit catalyst serving you to craft and tell your organization story concisely, concretely, and in a compelling way so your audience can completely connect. She believes that we become the stories we tell, so let's make it an impactful one. Currently, she serves as a storytelling consultant at the World Bank as one of the highest rated facilitators, 6.89 out of 7. Wow, that's amazing. In words of Andrei Tolstopiatenko, please excuse me for the pronunciation, Christine, knowledge manager, World Bank, Christine taught us the most important currency, the currency of love. Wow. Whereas Elizabeth Vivirito, Vice President Marketing, Center for Financial Services Innovation, expresses her feeling about Kristin as Kristin uses a thoughtful, strategic approach in working with speakers to bring out the best in their storytelling. It results in high impact, high energy presentation that's engaging for the audience. Kristin has performed on 5 continents in 20 countries. She has performed in storytelling festivals in Colombia, Iran, Kenya, Poland, Romania, and also performed across Europe on tour. She works as a storytelling and presentation skills consultant at the World Bank, where she teaches intensive courses since 2015. Most recently, her work has shifted into recovery from trauma work, healing our inner narrative or self-talk. The project is called Steer Your Story. She was accepted into University of Melbourne Narrative Therapy Master's Program and start in February. Friends, Kristin is not only an awesome storyteller, but she is also a great source of inspiration to everybody who has had chance to meet her. She can turn a depressed guy into an optimistic, cheerful one with her stories mixed with her creativity, passion, and love. She knows how to apply bubbles as tranquilizer and how to assign new function to simple hugs. Christine, what an inspiring life story of an awesome international storyteller. Is simply wow.
Thank you so much. What a lovely introduction. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Christine, what inspired you to move towards storytelling?
Oh my gosh, many things actually. It's not a completely direct route for me. Some of it was way back in middle school. So I was in grade 7. I was bullied a whole lot by other kids. I was always the smallest kid in the class. I had very thick glasses that I wore. I was not good at sport, and kids used to pick on me. In fact, my whole class used to come together and pull tricks on me. And it was really a difficult time, honestly, a really challenging time. And then in grade 8, discovered theater. And in theater, you can become whoever you want to on the stage. And it opened up a whole new way of thinking for me. And as that became a thread throughout my life, I did a lot of theater in high school, and then in university, was in a children's theater troupe in my 20s. And the storytelling part came as a sort of an offshoot of that when, and this might not sound related at all actually, I worked at the University of Pennsylvania on an ovarian cancer study. And it turned out in 64 pages of questions, the most important question was, tell the story of how you were diagnosed with ovarian cancer. And in that question, we were able to discover that many of these women had, for years, sometimes decades, known something was wrong with their body, but it didn't fit into a checklist on a medical question. And so that really planted a seed about a very different kind of story, the story of our whole person, and not in storytelling. Right after that cancer study ended, it was a 5-year study, I fell into a job as a children's librarian. I lived next door to a library. I went in, I was reading books out loud, and the director heard me and said, would you like to tell stories to children? And I said, oh, I would love that. And she asked if I could start the next day. And it turned out I could. My schedule was open. And it sounds like a dream, and it's absolutely the truth. And that evolved into a full-time job working at this library in a small town in Pennsylvania, a rural town, in a town where 3 factories had closed in 5 years. was very economically depressed. And there was a lot of addiction in this community because of the lack of work. Anyway, that connects to all of this, that the children in this community, most of them had not traveled more than 50 miles outside of where they lived. And my goal was to show them there was a whole world beyond their backyard, beyond their neighborhood, and how story could transport them. Because tying back to when I was a child, story transported me beyond my backyard. So the 398.2s, the folktale section of the library, became very dear, not only to me, but to really show those children all these different cultures and connect them. And it was the parents who said at the story hours, they would say, wow, I've never seen someone involve the children like you do, because I would bring theater into it. They said, you should be a storyteller. This was in 1999. So I went home and I Googled storytelling and I found, oh my gosh, you could do this as your job. This could be your work. And so it took 6 years from that time. I continued learning and honing my skill and studying and working with other storytellers and going to workshops and reading as much as I could about the craft. And in 2005, I left that full-time job and became a full-time storyteller in 2005. So that's sort of the journey into it. And then there's another evolution over the last 15 years. So
That's totally incredible, really. So, Kristin, every storyteller has their own style of storytelling. So, what is your style of storytelling? How do you select theme for creating stories?
oh my gosh. Well, again, mine is varied. So some of us tellers actually have several different kinds of stories we tell. So for me, as I was mentioning, it started with folk tales. And it started with quite theatrical presentations where I would actually choose children out of the audience to join me on stage. And they would become different characters in the story. And I never wanted anyone to feel left out. So I would also incorporate the entire audience. So they would become sound effects in the story. They would become repetition moments in the story, call and response kinds of things. And that was my style early on. And then it evolved over time into, now I would say, my stories have a lot more, all of my stories have always had a thread of compassion and kindness is a theme in, I would say, almost every single story I've ever shared. Early on, there was maybe more humor. Trickster tales. I really like trickster tales. I think that came out of having been bullied and wanting to not ever hurt the bully. It was finding out what's underneath it for them. And the style now is more, I think, more contemplative. And you'll see that in the story that I'll share later. And it's more about, it's maybe more subtle than it was before. There's a lot of heart. So for me, the heart showing through in the story is really important. And the only way I can share for other people to have that come through for them is to feel the story. And only tell stories you love. Only tell stories you love. That's a really important, that was a piece of advice I was given very early on. And that's been, for me, true ever since I started telling.
Absolutely true, Kristin. The story that comes from heart, it reaches to heart and it touches to heart and brings changes in the hearts, right? So, Kristin, you were awarded the Story Bridge Award in 2011 by National Storytelling Network. What was it all about?
So that was related to, in 2005, I traveled to Belize in Central America on holiday. And while I was there, I met a snorkel instructor who had never met a storyteller. And we had a conversation. And that conversation led us to exchanging email addresses and him writing to me and telling me about how literacy rates had dropped in Belize by something like almost 40% in less than 20 years. And he said, I think you have skills that could be really valuable here, your librarian skills, your story skills. Would you be willing to come here? And his encouragement, it was really through his encouragement. His name is Neftali Lemus, and I want to give him a shout out because he was the one who planted that seed, truly. And 30 days later, I put a for sale sign on my small house, sold my home, my possessions, gave away the other possessions, and used a portion of that to create and facilitate a literacy project in Belize. And it was really about listening. So it was a lot of listening to the locals. What did the teachers need? What did the librarians there need? What was missing? I knew I had a lot of enthusiasm and I had some skills, and the local people have so much knowledge and they have so many indigenous legends and stories that are really valuable. So it was, how do we collaborate? So created teaching manuals and training on how to use their own indigenous stories in the schools, and also how to bring more story into their classrooms as a teaching tool. And that project, by the end, I donated programs for about 30,000 students and trained about 800 teachers. And the Story Bridge idea was also about sharing culture. When I came back to the US, I would, with permission, I would share these Belizean stories and stories that the students and teachers that I taught, they had written. I would share those in schools in the US. So it became a bridge between, a lot of people don't even know about the country Belize. So it just became this small bridge that then became a larger bridge to many other cultures too. And did the same kind of story project in underserved schools in the US, focusing on the prominent cultures in schools, no matter what those cultures may have been. So that's the bridge part.
Great. Actually, the storytelling concept helps a lot to the teachers in schools. Even I, when teach my students, when I enter the class, I always say, close your books. We are not going to study. I'm going to tell you a story. And then we'll start with some historical, because I'm related to social science subject. I teach social studies. So it is related to all historical characters or geography or the climatic conditions or the democracy thing. So I always start with the story or the examples from the students only to get them connected and feel the story in the, from their hearts.
Yes.
And when they are completely into it, and then I just say, okay, fine, now we are done with the chapter. Now let's come on to the exercise. And they were shocked. Ma'am, we are done? I say, yes, that's the story. So I can really feel how stories can create a great impact when between teacher and student, and of course exchanging the cultures. Because in my subject, social studies is a subject where we study the cultures, the geography, and history of the whole world. So definitely when we are weaving those things into a story, children, they learn fast and they feel connected and they feel that they are living that story.
May I interject one more thing that we found really important? Was
yes, please.
In Belize and also in many other places, often in the teaching materials, the children do not see themselves reflected in it. So in Belize, a lot of the training materials came from the US, or they came from the UK or the Caribbean, which is in some ways okay. Children really needed to see themselves reflected. And so sharing their own cultural stories, the children were so engaged because they would say, oh, that legendary character looks like me. That legendary character, that's my culture. And so it gave them too a sense of pride. And that was really, really important to share with them, so they understood the value of their culture and then could uplift it and keep telling those stories themselves so those stories don't die. So that was another really important part of it. So thank you for letting me share that aspect too.
Absolutely true, Kristin. And yes, with this, when we talk about sharing cultures, I would like to draw your attention towards the International Storytelling Festival, which has recently been conducted by Sharon Matthews. You were part of that Kathasu Storytelling Festival, and I was there listening to you, and you were completely flabbergasting. And I was completely taken off by your story. You were amazing. So how was your experience of being in Kathastu?
Oh, it was wonderful. And Sharon she is such a dynamic and dynamo of a woman, a phenomenal woman. I am flabbergasted by how much she has been doing in the story world. And I'm so appreciative that she, with her team, was able to connect to storytellers from all over the world over this festival. And I think it's such a gift to share, not only for the people in India to see storytellers maybe who they'd never see before because of geography, right? And that's one gift from this pandemic, is we're doing so much like this online. We're connecting across so many cultures, seeing and experiencing things we may never have before. And it was delightful and an honor to be in that group. And I was just so grateful to Sharon. We've known each other for a while now, and we've never met in person, by the way. We connected this way.
So actually,
I don't even know how many years ago.
Yeah, this virtual platform has given us so much of, comfort to get connected globally.
Exactly. It's a gift.
Yes. So Kristin, it will be a great pleasure if you could please tell a short story to all of our listeners who are eagerly waiting for this moment.
Absolutely. So I'm going to share with you a short story that comes from Nigeria in Western Africa, and it's called The Greatest Gift. Chief Oba called in his favorite servant, and he said, I want to invite you to go on a quest. I want you to discover the greatest gift that God Obatala has given to humans. Are you willing to go on this quest? Oh yes, sire, anything you desire. And so the servant set out. He walked across the great plain. He spoke to the men hunting the animals. He spoke to the women collecting the fruits from the trees. He even spoke to the animals themselves. But he had not discovered the greatest gift that God Obatala had given. And so the servant hiked up the tallest mountain. He sat at the top. He meditated. He listened to the wind. He listened to the birds. But he had not yet discovered the greatest gift that God Obatala had given. And so he hiked down the other side of the mountain, across another great plain, and he spoke to the men who were casting out their fishing nets, the women doing their laundry on the bankside. He even spoke to the fish. And he finally discovered it, the greatest gift that God Obatala had given. And with a joyful heart, he practically ran across the plain, up the mountain, down the other side, across the savannah, to the home of the chief. Flung open the door, and the chief said, well, what is it? What have you discovered? He said, oh, sire, it is most wonderful. The greatest gift that God Obatala has given is the tongue. The chief looked at him and said, tongue? Yes, with the tongue, we can speak words of love and words of kindness. We can work our way into someone's heart and live there forever. And the elders, well, they can share their story with the next generation. And the next generation learns love too. The chief thought this indeed was wonderful. And then the chief thought for a moment and said, I wonder, are you willing to go on another quest? On another quest to discover the most awful thing that God Obatala has given to humans. This may be very important information for us. The servant thought. It is a difficult quest, but sire, anything you desire, I shall go. And the servant once again set out. He walked across the plain. He spoke to the men hunting the animals. He spoke to the women collecting the fruits from the trees. He even spoke to the animals. But he had not discovered the most awful thing that God Obatala had given. And so he hiked up the tallest mountain. He sat at the top. He meditated. He listened to the wind and to the birds. But he had not yet discovered the most awful thing that God Obatala had given. And so he hiked down the other side all the way across the savannah to the river. He spoke to the men casting out their fishing nets, the women doing laundry on the bankside. and even the fish. And then he discovered it, the most awful thing that God Obatala had given. And with a heavy heart, he made his way back across that grassy plain, up the mountain, down the other side, across the next savanna to the home of the chief. The chief opened the door and saw the servant looking so sad. And he said, what is it? What have you discovered? Sire, it's awful. The most negative thing that God Obatala has given to humans is the tongue. The chief looked at him and he said, the tongue? What do you mean? Oh, sire, with the tongue, some people speak words of gossip and words of hatred, and they break another's heart until it can never be repaired. And sometimes that gossip and hatred spreads and grows and turns into war. The elders, they can't share their story with the next generation because some of them go off and fight. Some of them die. Sire, it's awful. And then the chief looked at the servant and said, but I'm rather confused. How can it be that the tongue is both the most positive and the most negative thing that God Obatala has given to humans? And the servant and the chief sat and they thought and they meditated. And then the servant said, Sire, it's because God Obatala has not only given us the tongue, He's given us a mind with which we choose how to use the tongue. And the chief said, yes, and may we each choose wisely.
Oh my God, I'm totally spellbound. And at this moment, I remember one of the couplet in Hindi over here in India. So I would like to recite those couplets. ऐसी बानी बोलिए मन का आपा खोए औरन को शीतल करे आपहु शीतल होए. That means that one should speak such words, such sweet words, which gives peace and calmness and happiness to the other. And by speaking such sweet words, nice words, kind words, we should also feel better and calm. So if we'll speak bad words, we'll be disturbed, we'll never be happy. And if we'll speak good, we'll talk good, we'll feel happy, and we'll spread happiness. So that was really wonderful, Kristin. I was totally amazed, and actually I was totally into the story. When you were describing those ups and downs of the mountain and those things, I was totally into it. So I actually wish to keep on listening stories from you. In fact, my listeners will be happy to if I give this opportunity to them, that okay, now Kristin is here, let's hear more stories. But every program has some limitations, so definitely we are coming towards the end of this program. So friends, I know you are very much eager to hear some more stories, but for that definitely you have to wait till this interview comes up on air. Till that time, you can Google Kristin Pedemonti on Facebook or Google, where you can find stories by her. So thank you, Kristin, for being with us on Spotlight with Abha. But before we wind up this program, I just want to give 2-3 informations to my viewers. Friends, first thing what you are supposed to do is do like, share and comment on Kristin Pedemonti's video. Do press the subscribe button and don't forget to hit the bell icon. And of course, keep watching our YouTube channel for regular updates of global storyteller interviews. And at the same time, this program will be broadcasted on Radio Brain Rhyme, which has been heard in more than 20 countries. For that, you have to download Radio Brainrhyme application from Google Play Store. So friends, with the promise that I will be coming up with one more international storyteller in my next episode, I wish to take leave from here along with Kristin. Kristin, thanks again for giving your valuable time to me and for such a wonderful story. You can see me again in next episode of Spotlight with Abha. Till then, take care, stay safe, maintain the social distancing, and leave home only if it's necessary. Till then, bye bye, namaskar.